I remember the way she said it, like she was reading off a grocery list. No anger, no tears, just fact. The afternoon light slanted through the blinds, cutting sharp lines across the kitchen floor. She stood there, arms crossed, not quite looking at me, like she was already gone. We'd met 2 years earlier at the last chapter, that little bookstore on Elm Street that somehow still survived in the age of e-readers. I was browsing the fiction section, killing time before a dentist appointment, when I noticed her in poetry. She had this way of holding a book, like it might dissolve if she wasn't careful. Fingers tracing the lines as she read, mouthing the words silently. She was wearing a faded Smith's t-shirt and jeans with a hole in the knee, not trying to impress anyone. That's what got me first. I made some dumb joke about Bukowski. Cheerful stuff for a sunny day. And she laughed. Not the polite kind, but the real one, the kind that starts in the shoulders. Yeah, well, life's a carnival, she shot back. And just like that, we were talking. 2 hours later, we were still there, leaning against the shelves, ignoring the clerk's pointed glances. Maggie was 32. I was 47. The age gap didn't seem like a big deal at first. She liked that I knew how to fix things. Leaky faucets, squeaky doors, the way her car's check engine light always came on when it rained. I liked how she made the ordinary feel new. A Tuesday night dinner could turn into an adventure if she decided we were trying that Thai place across town or driving to the beach just to see the moon on the water. But over time, the differences got louder. She wanted to book a last-minute flight to Mexico because she'd read about some hidden beach. I hesitated. What about work? The dog. We should plan this. She'd sigh. Planning takes the magic out of it. She stayed out late with friends, coming home at 2 a.m. with stories that made me tired just hearing them. I fell asleep on the couch by 10, the TV murmuring some old movie. Some mornings she'd crawl into bed beside me smelling like whiskey and cigarette smoke, and I'd feel a pang of something. Not jealousy, exactly, but distance, like I was watching her life through a window. The breakup wasn't a fight. It was a resignation. We'd been moving around each other carefully for months, both sensing it. That Tuesday, she finally said it. I want someone who can keep up. No blame, just truth. I drove home in silence, the radio off, just the hum of the engine and the weight of those words. Too old. Not wrong for me, not we want different things. Just too old, like an expiration date I hadn't noticed. At home, I poured a whiskey I didn't really want and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the chair where she used to sit, one leg tucked under her, scrolling through her phone while I cooked. The apartment felt too quiet. Even the fridge's hum sounded different, lonelier. I thought about calling someone, my brother maybe, or my friend Paul, who'd been divorced twice and always had a dark joke ready for heartbreak. But I didn't. Instead, I took the dog for a walk, the leash too light in my hand without Maggie's chatter beside me. Passing the corner store, I almost didn't stop, but then I did. Bought a lottery ticket out of habit, the same one I'd been buying every Friday for years. Lucky day? The clerk asked. I almost laughed. Not even close. I slipped it into my wallet without scratching it. Right then it didn't matter. Nothing did. The weeks after Maggie left passed in a strange, suspended haze. I went through the motions, work, groceries, walking the dog. But everything felt hollowed out, like I was playing the role of myself in a movie no one was watching. Mornings were the worst. For years, I'd woken up at 6:15 without an alarm, my body trained to the rhythm of making coffee while Maggie slept in, her dark hair fanned across the pillow. Now I'd lie in bed until the last possible minute, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar silence of the apartment. The bed felt too big, the blankets too stiff without her warmth beside me. I started noticing my age in ways I never had before. The stiffness in my knees when I stood up, the way the barber sighed before asking, "Same as usual?" His subtle way of acknowledging my thinning hair. One afternoon, I caught my reflection in a store window and didn't recognize the slumped shoulders staring back at me. When did I start looking like someone's tired father? My friends tried to help. Paul took me out for beers and told me about his second divorce. At least yours didn't take half your retirement. My sister sent casseroles with little notes. Eat something decent for once. Their kindness made it worse somehow, a reminder that I was now that guy, the sad middle-aged man nursing a broken heart. I developed bad habits. Started leaving dishes in the sink for days. Let the laundry pile up until I was wearing mismatched socks to work. Found myself standing in the liquor aisle at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, debating whether buying whiskey before noon made me an alcoholic or just efficient. The worst part was the phantom texts. A dozen times a day, I'd reach for my phone to tell Maggie something, about the weird customer at work, about how the dog had learned to open the fridge, before remembering. Those moments hit like a punch to the gut every single time. One rainy Thursday, I drove past our old bookstore. Through the fogged-up windows, I could see a young couple laughing in the poetry section, their heads bent close together. I sat in my car watching them until the rain turned heavy, the rhythmic thump of water on the roof the only sound. That's when it really hit me. I wasn't just missing Maggie. I was missing the person I'd been with her, the version of myself that still believed in spontaneous road trips and late-night conversations about nothing. That night, I dug out the lottery ticket I'd bought weeks earlier, the one from the day she left. I'd completely forgotten about it. Sitting at the kitchen table with a beer and a quarter, I started scratching it off with no real expectation. Just something to do besides staring at the walls. The first match was $10. Then another. Then suddenly, the numbers kept lining up. My hands started shaking. I checked the ticket against the website 3 times, then 4. The numbers didn't change. I won. Not life-changing money, but enough to pay off my car. Enough to take a real vacation. Enough that when the news inevitably got out, people would say, "Damn lucky bastard." I sat there laughing, a wet, broken sound. The universe had a sick sense of humor. Give a man money right when he realizes there's nothing he wants to buy. I thought about texting Maggie, not to gloat, just to, I don't know, prove something. That I wasn't just some old relic she'd outgrown. That I could be spontaneous too. In the end, I didn't. I folded the ticket carefully and put it in my wallet, right next to the grocery list Maggie had written the week before she left. Her loopy handwriting still there, like a ghost. The dog whined at my feet, sensing my mood. I scratched behind his ears. "Guess we're rich now, buddy," I said. He wagged his tail, unimpressed. Outside, the rain kept falling. The morning after scratching the ticket, I woke with a dry mouth and the uneasy sense that I'd dreamed the whole thing. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, painting stripes across the rumpled sheets. I reached for my wallet before my feet even hit the floor. The ticket was still there, still real. I'd won $250,000. Not enough to retire on, but enough to change things. Enough to make my hands shake again as I held the thin slip of paper. The dog whined, nudging my knee with his wet nose. His breakfast was late. All right, I muttered, but my mind was elsewhere. What did people do when they won money? Quit their jobs? Buy boats? I worked in the accounting department of a plumbing supply company. I liked the quiet rhythm of numbers, the way everything balanced in the end. The thought of not going back left me unexpectedly hollow. I called the lottery office first, my voice surprisingly steady as I confirmed the claim process. Then I sat at the kitchen table with a second cup of coffee, watching steam curl from the mug. The silence of the apartment felt different today, charged with possibility rather than absence. My phone buzzed. "Paul, you alive over there? Haven't seen you at the diner in weeks." I stared at the message. We'd been meeting every Thursday for eggs and bad coffee for 15 years. I'd forgotten last week, forgotten this week too. "Alive," I typed back. Then, before I could overthink it, "Won some money, lottery." 3 dots appeared immediately. "How much?" I hesitated. "Enough." The phone rang in my hand. "Jesus Christ, Mike," Paul barked before I could say hello. "You hit the damn jackpot and text me enough? What is this, a spy movie?" I laughed, the sound strange to my own ears. We made plans to meet at the diner that afternoon. As I hung up, I realized this was the first time in months I'd made plans without calculating whether Maggie would mind. The news spread fast. By the time I arrived at the diner, Paul had already told Debbie, our usual waitress, who told the cook, who apparently told everyone in the kitchen. A teenage busboy I'd never seen before clapped me on the shoulder as he walked by. "Way to go, man." Paul slid a coffee toward me. Black, 2 sugars. "So, $250,000, huh?" "After taxes," I said automatically. He shook his head. "Still? What are you going to do?" The question hung between us. I stared at my reflection in the diner's greasy window. Same tired eyes, same salt and pepper stubble. The money hadn't changed my face, hadn't filled the Maggie-shaped hole in my life. "I don't know," I admitted. "Fix the deck, maybe. Take a trip." Paul studied me over his mug. "You gonna tell her?" I didn't need to ask who he meant. The thought had been circling my mind all morning. Would Maggie care? Would it change anything? I pictured her reaction. Surprise. Maybe a flicker of regret. Then that determined set of her jaw as she moved on. "Nah," I said finally. "What's the point?" Debbie refilled our cups, her bracelets jangling. "You know what you need?" she announced. "A cruise. My cousin won 10 grand once, went on one of those Alaskan cruises, met her second husband." Paul groaned. "Mike doesn't need a husband, Deb." "I don't need a cruise either," I said. But I was smiling. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The money was real. The loneliness was real. And somewhere out there, Maggie was living her life, probably staying out late, probably not thinking about me at all. I rolled over and checked my phone out of habit. No messages. Just the time. 2:17 a.m. The next morning, I called a financial advisor, made an appointment to fix the deck, bought a new pair of walking shoes for the dog. Normal things, practical things. The money didn't fix anything, but maybe, just maybe, it could help me build something new. The financial advisor's office was all glass and chrome, the kind of place that made my worn-out loafers feel out of place. A sleek blonde woman named Lauren shook my hand with a grip that meant business. "So, Mr. Callahan," she said, spreading my ticket and bank statements across the desk like a surgeon preparing instruments. "Let's talk about your future." Future. The word sat heavy in my chest. At 47, I'd stopped thinking much about futures. Just next year's, maybe next vacations. Now this stranger was asking me to imagine decades. Lauren talked about annuities and index funds, her manicured nails tapping the spreadsheet. "With this amount, you could comfortably retire at 62 if we—" "I like my job," I interrupted. She blinked. "Of course, but this could give you options." Options. That's what everyone kept saying. But standing at the copy machine the next Monday, listening to Janet from Receivables whisper loudly about how Mike won't be slumming it with us much longer, I realized I didn't want different options. I just wanted to stop feeling like my life had already happened to me. The money arrived in my account on a Wednesday. I sat staring at the extra zeros until my eyes burned. Then I did something unexpected. Nothing. Well, not exactly nothing. I paid off the mortgage, donated to the animal shelter where I'd gotten the dog, bought a new mattress after realizing I'd been sleeping on the same sagging one since my divorce 10 years earlier. But I kept going to work, kept meeting Paul at the diner, kept waking up at 6:15. One evening, I found myself cleaning out the junk drawer, the kind of task you put off for years until suddenly you can't stand it another second. Beneath tangled cords and expired coupons, I found a Polaroid of Maggie and me at Coney Island. Her hair was wind-whipped, one hand gripping my arm as she laughed at something I'd said. I couldn't even remember what joke had made her smile like that. I set the photo on the counter and stared at it while the coffee brewed. The truth settled over me like dusk. The breakup hadn't been about money or age. It had been about two people realizing, at different speeds, that they wanted different lives. She wanted motion. I wanted quiet. Neither was wrong. The dog nosed my hand, bringing me back to the present. I scratched his ears. "We're okay, aren't we, buddy?" He wagged his tail and trotted to his food bowl, utterly unconcerned with existential crises. That night, I dreamed I was back in the bookstore. Maggie was there, but when I reached for the Bukowski volume to make my joke again, the pages were blank. I woke with my heart pounding, the digital clock reading 3:42 a.m. At dawn, I drove to the beach, the same one Maggie and I had gone to that first summer. Late October meant I had the shore to myself. The waves were rough, the sky the color of old bruises. I stood there until my toes went numb in my sneakers, watching the horizon. A text buzzed in my pocket. Paul. Diner. Now Debbie made pie. I smiled. Some things didn't need to change. When I got home, I finally did something with the money. Not grand or glamorous, but meaningful. I enrolled in a woodworking class at the community center. Always wanted to try it. Never had the time. The first night, I botched a simple birdhouse. The instructor, a retired carpenter with ink-stained hands, just chuckled. Everybody thinks they'll be a natural, he said, showing me how to adjust my grip. Takes time, like most good things. As I sanded the rough edges, the sawdust sticking to my sweaty forearms, I realized something. The lottery hadn't given me a new life. It had given me permission to appreciate the one I already had. I never did take that cruise. But the following spring, I built a damn fine bookshelf. A year later, I found Maggie's favorite scarf wedged behind the dresser while deep cleaning the bedroom. The soft blue fabric still smelled faintly of her shampoo, something with coconut in it. I held it for a long moment before folding it carefully and tucking it into the donation bin. No drama, no lingering sadness. Just an old scarf that didn't belong to me anymore. The woodworking class had turned into a proper hobby. My garage was now half workshop, the air permanently dusted with the scent of pine and varnish. I'd built Paul a set of Adirondack chairs for his birthday, crooked but sturdy. Damn, he'd said, running a hand over the armrest. Maybe you should have quit accounting years ago. The money was still there, though less of it now. I'd taken a 2-week road trip last fall, just me and the dog, driving up the coast with no itinerary. Slept in questionable motels, ate at diners where the coffee tasted like burnt rubber, stood on cliffs overlooking the Pacific at sunset. It was the kind of trip Maggie would have loved. The thought didn't sting like it used to. One rainy April afternoon, I ran into her at the grocery store. She was in the produce section, weighing a mango in her palm. Same messy bun, same habit of biting her lower lip while deciding. For a second, I considered slipping away. Then she looked up. Mike. Her smile was genuine, if surprised. Hi. We talked by the avocados, small talk, the kind you make with someone you used to know. She'd moved to the city, was working at a graphic design firm, dating a guy who played in a band. He's your age, actually, she said, and there was no malice in it, just fact. I told her about the woodworking, the road trip, didn't mention the lottery, didn't matter. When the conversation lulled, she touched my arm lightly. I'm glad you're doing well. You too, I said, and meant it. Walking away, I realized something. I didn't need to know if she'd heard about the money, didn't need to wonder if she regretted leaving. The win hadn't been a lesson for her, it had been one for me. That night, I sanded down the edges of a cherrywood jewelry box I'd been working on, the radio playing old Springsteen songs. The dog snored at my feet. Through the garage window, I could see the first stars of the evening. I used to think winning would make her regret it. Now, I hope she's happy. And I'm finally getting there too. Turns out, time is the only lottery that really pays out.